If you want to control a nation, you don't need to control its army. Just control what the country puts on its people's plates. The history of humanity has always been shaped by the search for, the scarcity of, and the distribution of food. But what happens when food stops being a natural resource and becomes a tool of absolute control? Today we are going to connect the dots between three of the most visionary and disturbing works of 20th century science fiction and horror. The prophetic horror of Damien, Omen 2, from 1978. The bleak dystopia of Soylent Green, from 1973. And the one known in Brazil and around the world, The True Totalitarian Nightmare, 1984. Written by George Orwell. In all these stories, the apocalypse doesn't come with atomic bombs or immediate alien invasion. It comes quietly, disguised as an economic solution, technological innovation, and sustainability. And the most disturbing point isn't what these stories told through film or literature. It's how our reality in the year 2026 is aligning step by step as if it were another Hollywood script, with each of these fictional prophecies released on movie screen. You need to stay until the end of this video, because the recent news about the protein and biotechnology industry, which we will analyze in the last segment, will make you look at your supermarket in a completely different way. From now on, and that, I guarantee. Since there's no more time to waste, grab the breaded chicken and the acai bread, toasted with butter, and the cup of coffee right now. And let's start our segment, Lords of the World. Lords of the World. Let's start with the year 1978 in the movie The Omen, Damien, Omen 2. We follow the young Damien Thorne. He is no longer the little boy from the first movie, but now a teenager, discovering his true identity as the Antichrist himself. However, the plan of the forces of darkness for him is not just political or religious in the traditional sense, it's corporate. Damien is about to inherit Thorne Industries, a giant multinational corporation that operates in several strategic sectors. But pay attention to the crucial sector that the devil's servants within the company insist on dominating: the global production of grains and food. In the movie, the executives aligned with the diabolical plan are planning to buy vast stretches of farmland around the world. The goal isn't just to make a profit, it's to have the power of life and death over entire population. If Thorne Industries controls the distribution of food on a global scale, any nation that opposes the companies and the Antichrist directives can be subjected to extreme famine. It's a brilliant metaphor. True modern evil doesn't wear dark robes at hidden altars. It wears a suit and tie in corporate board meetings. As we well know, the kind that happens at the Bilderberg Group, the 1978 film, anticipated the concept of monopolistic transnational agribusiness in the story of The Omen. The original founder of the company, a traditional businessman, had no idea that his own corporation had been infiltrated by devotees of chaos, ready to use its food infrastructure as the ultimate weapon of social control. When food production becomes the monopoly of a single private company, the sovereignty of countries simply disappears. It's total dependence. And if in The Omen the control is driven by a spiritual agenda of corporate domination in Soylent Green, released in 1973, the food apocalypse is the result of environmental collapse and overproduction. If in The Omen control is driven by a spiritual agenda of corporate domination. In Soylent Green, released in 1973, however, simulating the year 2022, the food apocalypse is the result of environmental collapse and overpopulation. In the universe of Soylent Green, severe global warming has destroyed conventional agriculture. The land no longer produces as it used to, and water is rationed, and real food like fruits, vegetables, real meat has become an inaccessible luxury for at least 99% of the population, restricted only to the hyper-rich elite. The production of traditional foods has been practically banned or made unfeasible by the state under the pretext of a planetary crisis. To save humanity from devastating hunger, a single corporation emerges, authorized to produce the world's food supply, Soylent Corporation. The population survives on ultra-processed industrial food wafers, Soylent Red, Soylent Yellow, and the newest revolutionary release, Soylent Green, supposedly made from marine plankton. Detective Thorne's journey reveals the terrible secret behind this industry. The marine ecosystem is already dead, there is no more plankton. The corporation, in order to maintain its food monopoly and keep billions of people dispossessed, resorted to the darkest solution possible, turning the dead themselves into food for the living. What makes Soylent Green such a frightening prophecy is not just its shocking twist, but the socio-economic structure the film described. We can break it down into 4 phases. First, the destruction and prohibition of traditional agriculture. Second, centralization of production in a single megacorporation, replacement of natural food with mass-synthesized substitutes. Fourth, Arlington and Hivich has been a section of the ship out of Southwest Duntic as D.8 stuff. Now let's take a step back in the chronology of cinema and literature to look at the masterpiece of George Well, 1984. When we think of 1984, we remember Big Brother, Newspeak, the Thought Police, and the surveillance screens, but Orwell dedicated crucial pages to describing the regime's food. In the world of Oceania, the outer party population doesn't consume real food. Real meat is a distant memory, something only inner party members can get on the black market. In its place, the population consumes victory tea, and a gray gelatinous substance produced by the state that simulates meat. This is where one of the most striking and disturbing phrases in dystopian literature appears. It tastes like meat, it smells like meat, but it isn't. Why did Orwell's totalitarian regime replace real food with synthetic food? It wasn't just due to lack of resources, it was a deliberate project of desensitization. When you remove aesthetic pleasure, authentic flavor, and the connection to the land, you remove the individuality of the human being. The synthetic food in 1984 serves to condition both the body and the mind. It nourishes the body just enough to keep the workforce active, but it destroys the soul, the sense of taste, and humanity's cultural memory. If you don't know what real meat tastes like, you'll accept any chemical substitute the party offers you. In other words, control of taste is control of memory. And this is the moment when we need to connect the 3 examples. In the Omen, the corporate filtering to monopolize land and grains. In Soylent Green, the environmental crisis is used to ban and replace natural food with corporate synthetic portions. In 1984, the phrase, "it tastes like meat, it smells like meat," but it isn't reflects the normalization of artificial food. All of this seemed like just 20th century science fiction. But now let's look at the current scenario, no longer in scripts, but in real news from our world. They show giants of the meat industry, like JBS, inaugurating a biotechnology center for super proteins and cultivated meats here in Brazil, precisely in Florianopolis. This is a multi-million-dollar investment that has been in the works for years, focused on the development of alternative proteins, food biotechnology, and cell culture in the lab. On one hand, the official narrative from the industry and global agendas points to noble reasons. As always, and you already know this if you follow the channel, even the bloodiest regime in the world always champions a noble cause. But they do exactly the opposite. Here, the banner they raise is the need to feed a growing global population, the reduction of carbon emissions, the preservation of the environment, and animal welfare. Arguments that, on paper, make perfect sense in the face of the challenges of the 21st century. However, my noble and dear brothers, COP30, held here in Brazil from November 10 to 21, 2025, proved that the intention of this period was never really what the proposal promises. COP30 held in Brazil was the 30th United Nations Conference on Climate Change. Funny thing, my brothers, is that the ship itself, hired by the mollusk, was burning tons of oil, polluting the environment to provide the greatest comfort to the participants of that event. A real contradiction. A meeting that was supposed to be about thinking of nature, and those guys burned thousands of tons of diesel all at once. Which proves in practice that it was never about what they say it is. And that's why, when we analyze the phenomenon through the lens of the dystopias we just reviewed, deep questions arise that society needs to debate. And let's break it down into three. The first, the centralization of control. Traditional livestock farming and agriculture are decentralized. There are millions of rural producers, small, medium, and large. But the production of super proteins in laboratories requires million-dollar patents, high-tech bioreactors, and specialized scientific know-how held by only a few multinational companies. If the food of the future is made in a laboratory, whoever holds the patents will control the lives of the population. Does that remind you of any movie? The second point is consumer dependency. What happens when natural food starts being discouraged, taxed, or made unfeasible by strict environmental regulations, opening up exclusive space for biotechnological substitute? The last point, the third one, the phrase from you are in the present. When we taste ultra-processed foods, modernized foods, or cultivated meats and they tell us it tastes the same texture and the same smell. We're not exactly living out the line from 1984. This is not about creating unfounded conspiracy theories, but about recognizing historical and cultural patterns. Food technology, when combined with corporate monopoly and excessive state regulation, creates the ideal scenario for perfect social control. Hollywood screenwriters in the 1970s and George Orwell in the 1940s didn't have a crystal ball. They simply understood the logic of power. Whoever controls energy controls industries. Whoever controls money controls governments. But whoever controls food controls people. The big question that remains for our century is, are we now walking with a foolish smile on our faces toward a future of sustainable innovation that will guarantee everyone's survival? Or are we step by step building the infrastructure for the food monopoly predicted in the Omen, Soylent Green, and in 1984? When real food becomes a privilege and synthetic, patented, and corporate food becomes the rule, the apocalypse doesn't need fire or brimstone. It just needs a signature on the distribution contract. And that's why when we see this article from XM magazine, JBS inaugurates Biotechnology Center for Super Protein in Florianopolis, we can already notice even in the headline how the media itself supports this kind of thing. It's a fact that this meat will still use animal molecules, but it's not really the meat that the creator left for us. At this moment, several people, including those who are vegan, and they're not fooling anyone because one thing is giving up certain foods because of your ideology, and another thing is trying to impose your worldview on others. Whoever doesn't want to eat real meat left by God just shouldn't eat it. But don't try to create or approve laws that restrict people's rights or take away their options through the heavy hand of the state. Why not mention the hammer of our gods? Because that's what these people want. I wouldn't be making this video if this were just one more option, but we know it's not. All over the world, including in Europe, the state itself has been buying productive land just to leave it unused. Because they know that as long as the food made by the creator is available on the shelf at the same price, people will always choose it. So, for these investments that these companies have made in the billions, trillions of dollars, it's necessary to restrict and put an end to normal production. Yes, we are moving forward, my brothers, with a foolish smile on our faces, waving the prettiest flags like this idiot here, whose name I'd rather not mention, is saying. He says, me, being vegan, I wouldn't eat it, but I think the initiative is positive if it's to reduce animal suffering and maybe, in the long run, eliminate it. So this jerk is rooting for the state to finally forbid people from having their own land and producing whatever they want. It's the state playing God. And these people do this in the name of ideology. I don't see their own hypocrisy, because the land where this idiot was born, the clothes he wears, all of that harmed animal life in some way, directly or indirectly. But God didn't make the world for animals. He made it for people who are made in his image and likeness. So, my noble and dear brothers, if you think this way too, share this video, because it's ending here. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you understood how hard it is to make this kind of content. So please, share it, show it to more people. It's no use if we just stay among ourselves, because that way the system will keep creating more restrictions against us. There's no point in running away to the mountain. There's no point in hiding in the woods, because their reach is long and they'll find you wherever you go. The thing is to confront them head on. The thing is to raise awareness among more and more people, because every awakened person is another soldier in this battle. I'll stop here. God bless you, my brothers. Take care, and always facing the supernatural here on Ikara and Tower News.